and welcome back to the North Star Takes podcast with Bailey Policki and Jacob Liberta. You can find all our videos here on our channel, and feel free to give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram as well, and be sure to click that subscribe button below to stay tuned for fairly often, I'd say, Minnesota sports content, sometimes national scene stuff as well. But today we're going to cover the whole broad landscape of Minnesota sports here. After watching the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo leading a mid-market team to a professional championship.
Midwestern team.
Yes. Flyover country, some people like to call it.
Like Stephen A.
Yeah.
And Kellerman.
All the national personalities on ESPN. But we disagree with them, but that's a whole other topic. But so, I mean, I guess does the Milwaukee Bucks winning that championship kind of give you any hope for a Minnesota sports franchise, whichever of the main? We're talking about the core four today, obviously, with the MLB, NHL, NFL, and NBA. So does the Milwaukee Bucks winning give you more hope, would you say, for any of these Minnesota sports teams, or do you think we're just cursed?
Absolutely, I think it gives us more hope. I think 8 years ago, the Bucks were 15-67 right after they got Giannis and Middleton, and now here we are 8 years later. I mean, granted, you'd like to think it wouldn't take you 8 years to get there, but at the same time,
8 years is a while. They've been patient with that.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, you'd like to think it won't take 8 years, but at the same time, we've been sitting on this for 30 years now since the Twins won the World Series in '91. So that's pretty disheartening. So, I mean, if you could tell me in 8 years that this Ant combo with whoever else we have on the team is going to work and, like, we'll win a championship in 2029, like, sign me up. If I know what's going to happen, because we've had so many years of misery. But honestly, watching this Milwaukee team does give me hope because it's a pretty similar market to ours. And, like I said, the Bucks weren't a great franchise as of even, like, 5 years ago or something like that. And they've just come around these last few years and become a dominant team. And I think they definitely earned this championship because they've been kind of in the mix for these last couple of years. I mean, they're the number one team in the Eastern Conference last year. And then this year they beat a really good Nets team in that conference semifinals. And honestly, they did it the right way, too, as far as building the team through the draft with Middleton and Giannis. And then when they really were on the cusp of contending, then they went out and made the marquee move to trade for Drew Holiday. Right. So I think they built the team just how you would envision it working, and I think it's great for them, and that's why I think it's great for us because it's just a different team. It's kind of in some ways we can compare ourselves to that it could actually happen for us one day. I don't know. What are you thinking, Bailey?
I tend to agree with you. I was going to say what's nice about Milwaukee winning it is, like, there's no beef with Milwaukee from most Minnesota sports fans. I mean, it's the Milwaukee Bucks. They're in a completely different conference from the Wolves. They had both been bad teams really up until a couple of years ago when the Bucks started doing well, like you mentioned. So I think, it probably should give us more hope, but there's always the cynic Minnesota sports fan inside of me that...
you guard yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You prepare for disappointment every year. Like, for instance, this year, the Minnesota Vikings, there's no reason that they shouldn't win the division, and they should honestly be probably NFC Championship contenders for sure, if not Super Bowl contenders. And
I know we all have our invisible walls up just waiting for heartbreak to hit us.
You have Kirk Cousins, who's not very clutch in most moments. You have injury issues seem to hit the Vikings pretty hard every year with key players too, especially. And it's just, something always goes wrong. There's the Vikings kickers are always terrible, so there's always that part of it as well.
It's always the dagger.
So,
oh my gosh.
Then you got the Wild, who they appear that they're building something good here with Kirill Kaprizov, Kevin Fiala, Eriksson Ek. They're making some moves here in the offseason. They've got a good young roster that, they made the playoffs. They took Vegas to 7 games. They look like they're building it the right way, but it remains to be seen. The NHL really... If you're hot at the end of the year going into the playoffs, really you have a chance no matter what.
As long as you're in,
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of the NHL and the MLB as well. Obviously, the Twins have been horrible this year. The last couple of years, though, they were really good. Won the division both years. Of course, they couldn't win a single playoff game, which that's a whole other hurdle that they have to clear. But and then you got the Timberwolves, who have just been horrible forever. And it's like, eventually you'd think we have to get lucky and the Timberwolves have to get good at some point. They don't even have to be like championship contenders, but can we at least make the playoffs every now and then?
People would be greatly excited about that.
They would be.
That's really setting the bar low. Just making the playoffs when 8 teams in your conference out of 15 make the playoffs. I feel like that should be a pretty safe bar to hit.
For sure. And like the Timberwolves have the lowest bar. People will not expect this Timberwolves team to win a championship. They just want them to be competitive, make the playoffs, don't suck every year. Whereas like with the Vikings, expectations have been high for the last, I'd say, ever since Zimmer's really been here, 2015 and beyond, for sure. when you bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins, you pay him all this money
to win a championship.
Yeah, to be the key piece to a championship team, and we haven't even gotten close. And it's not necessarily all Kirk Cousins' fault, but at the same time, it's like expectations need to be higher. This team needs to win more than a wild card playoff game in 3 years. With Kirk Cousins, and you got Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. Obviously, we've been through it before with all these elite playmakers we have.
Yes.
The defense is reloaded. So, yeah, it's just each team is at kind of a different stage. I'd say the Wild are clearly ascending. I'd say the Vikings are probably getting close to their peak of what they can be, at least with this current roster. I'd say the Timberwolves are starting to ascend, but it kind of remains to be seen how that's going to go. The Twins are clearly on the downslope right now, but they also have the ability with some young prospects, some stud prospects as well coming that they could rebound fairly quickly.
And they're approaching a big trade deadline here, and then also this offseason will be pivotal for which way this franchise is going. If we're going to win right now, if we're just going to kind of plan for the future.
Right.
With decisions on Buxton and Barrios and players like that. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do for sure. So I guess out of the major four professional sports teams we have in Minnesota here, how are you feeling about each one? And I guess who do you give the best odds? And say 1 through 4, who's your best odds of winning a championship? Let's say within the next 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. Before I answer that real quick, I'm gonna kind of take us back a little bit as long as we've been alive, which dates back 23 years, and basically going back to that point. If you think about our 4 teams, they've made 7 championship appearances where they're on the doorstep of getting into the league championship. The Vikings been in the NFC championship 4 times, 98, 2000, 2009, and then 2017.
Yep.
Then you got the Twins in the ALCS in 2002. Then you got the Wild in the Western Conference Finals in 2003. And then you got the Wolves in the Western Conference Finals in 2004.
Yeah.
So 7 times, not once did we break through. And honestly, if you want to really slim it down the last 17 years and so forth, basically since you and I have been able to comprehend sports and what this really means, these championship runs are. And if you go back to that point after the Wolves lost in the Western Conference Finals, the Vikings are the only team to even come close. These other 3 haven't even really been scratching the surface, because the Vikings at least had that 2009 year where it felt like we should have won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And that's why that hits so deep for us, is because that's our one calling card. It's like, man, that is the year we should have won the championship, and we just didn't.
You're
and then 17,
right.
we weren't even close to the Super Bowl really, because we got annihilated in that game. So it's like, I feel like we're not even close, and we have to get to that point first. But as far as your 4 to 5 year time frame here, and these looking ahead till 2026, if I'm going to rank them 1 through 4, I'll start at 4. And it's really tough for me to say this, because this could drastically change just this year even.
Yep.
And at this point, I'd say the Wolves, just because they've only won 1 playoff game in the last 17 years. So I kind of got to pump the brakes on them a little bit, even though their upside might be higher than I think people are willing to give them credit for. And I think their upside could be higher than even the Twins, for instance, or dare I say the Wild maybe, but that might be stretching a little bit.
Okay.
But I just really like the power of one guy to be able to carry an NBA team.
Right.
Like, for instance, where it's a little bit harder in basically every other sport to do that. So
I'd
probably start with the Wolves at 4. And then at 3, I'd probably go the Twins, just because, like I said, if I'm going to base the Timberwolves bottom of the food chain here as far as playoff wins goes, then the Twins got to be next, just because they have this 18-game losing streak in the postseason. So they got to prove they can win a playoff game, let alone get to the World Series. So then I'd probably have to go to the Wild next, just because they haven't been to a Western Conference Finals since 2003. Albeit they at least give themselves some chances. They get in the playoffs almost every year, and that's been a constant thing this last decade. And I'd like to think our team has only gotten better since this current group of guys basically got phased out for a new, hopefully younger and more talented group of guys that can get over the hump. So I'd probably say the Wild actually have a pretty decent chance, and plus I like the NHL's parity. And then that just leaves the Vikings, even though they probably leave the deepest heartbreaks
shoot themselves in the foot
every single time. It hurts the most. I got to go with the Vikings, just because the chances, like I said, as long as we've been able to comprehend things, they're the only ones who come close. And I just think that this team is just a well-structured machine, really. This franchise is really well ran. We have great ownership, starts at the top with the Wolves, and I really like Rick as the GM. I like his ability to build a roster. And then Zay might like him as a coach for the most part, albeit I think he has his downfalls, but I think any coach would. It really comes down to these players just making it happen, and hopefully being able to overcome adversity because there's always been injuries, and then next man up, see if they can step up. I like to think we have a deep roster this year and going forward. So
Yeah.
I really got to lean the Vikings way, but it's just a huge question mark with Kirk. He's won the division once, and that was with Washington 6 years ago. And then it's just he has his downfalls and big moments when all the chips are on the table. He just crumbles. He's got the one signature win against the Saints, and that's it. So I want to see if he can put together a playoff run. But the Vikings, it's a little biased too. I feel like they'll always take the cake for me. That's the championship I want the most. The Super Bowl title, it would just be so electric. I mean, it's the most widely publicized thing in America. So I think that'd be huge for the state. And I can just picture the parade in the Twin Cities. How many people would come out for that? It would just blow everybody's mind. I think that'd be awesome. Just to have a huge party with all these strangers out there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And just living your life in the greatest moment. I can't really top that as far as championships go in this state. But how about you, Baylor? What's your order here between the four?
So I agree with you on 3 and 4. I think just by default you kind of have to put the Wolves at 4, even though it looks like they're really starting to build something here. And like you said, their potential could be off the charts. I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as saying they could have a higher ceiling than like the Wild, but definitely I'd say higher ceiling than the Twins just in terms of like true star power. Twins at 3, obviously they've had a horrible season this season. It's going to be interesting to see which direction they go, and it's kind of hard to find out how to feel about them until you see what direction they're going. If they trade Barrios, if they trade Buxton, if they hang on to them, what they get back for like a Nelson Cruz, if they trade Donaldson, stuff like that. So Twins will be interesting, and I don't know. There's just something about the MLB where it's like, I don't know. I've kind of lost interest in it, honestly. Like, the league in general is just not doing well in terms of viewership and popularity. And then when the Twins are bad, it just makes it so much worse. So, I mean, obviously that doesn't have much to do with their chances of winning a championship, but no. And then I'd say I'll go Vikings at 2 and Wild at 1, because here's what I have to say about the Vikings is that, yes, we have a really good looking roster on paper right now. And it appears that Aaron Rodgers is probably not going to play for the Packers this year, but we don't truly know. And so if he does come back, that's going to make it tough once again to win the division, even though we have a better roster than the Packers, but it seems to not matter when Aaron Rodgers is playing.
I know, and that's so frustrating. And it starts with winning the division, because then you guarantee yourself at least one home playoff game, hopefully multiple.
That's the main problem with the Vikings is they're never good enough to get home field advantage except for 2017.
Yep.
You need home field advantage basically to get to the Super Bowl. That's the way it's been for the last several years. And then the problem is, say they do get through the NFC, which is considerably weaker this year than normal, you'll probably have to face the Chiefs or like the Baltimore Ravens, who are two very good teams. There's no way the Vikings can beat the Chiefs. I'm sorry, but maybe if Mahomes is just having an awful game, like a career worst game or something, but after the way he played in this last year's Super Bowl, I don't see him ever playing like that in a Super Bowl again.
Probably not.
Even though it wasn't really his fault. It was more the offensive line. But that's the main issue I have with the Vikings is even if they can get there, I don't think they could beat like the Chiefs, who are probably a dynasty in the making, honestly, in the NFL.
Probably in a dynasty's first one since the Patriots, for sure. And I think it could resemble the Patriots when it's all said and done, possibly. But obviously that's a lot of pressure to put on a team and a quarterback. But I'd really add real quick to the Vikings. I think that could play into our hands a little bit if Zim is still leading the charge, because in the Super Bowl, just the winner take all, just one game, maybe he could pull something out of his hat with the defense, maybe create this genius scheme basically like the Bucks did last year to shut them down, or at least enough for our offense to put us over the top and win our first Super Bowl. But keep going. Yeah,
that is a good point. I think Zimmer, if anyone can do it, it's Zimmer. But we also thought that in 2017, going to the NFC Championship game, his defense just got shredded.
That came back to bite us.
I mean, anything can happen, obviously, but just by playing the odds and what most people would think would happen, it's so hard to beat Patrick Mahomes. I mean, in 2019, the year we made the playoffs, we couldn't even beat the Chiefs with Matt Moore at quarterback. So,
oh my gosh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's interesting. But then you got the Wild, who, like we've talked about, they're building a good young team. The GM he takes no BS whatsoever. He doesn't care what other people think. He's going to do it his way.
And he was a coach, really.
Yeah, he's got a true vision for this team, and he'll buy out Parisi and Suter. He doesn't care how they feel, and I admire that, honestly. Like, he's doing what's best for the team. No feelings, no strings attached.
Knows how to do business.
Exactly. So I like that a lot. And like you mentioned, the parity in the NHL, just by pure odds, if the Wild keep making the playoffs here and you have a superstar like Kaprizov, you'd think they'd make a run.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, who's going to bet on the Canadians and make this year's
exactly.
Cup? I mean, albeit they didn't win, but like they made it there, and I'd take that at this point.
Yeah,
but,
and you got the Tampa Bay Lightning have won a couple Stanley Cups in the last few years, and yeah, I wouldn't say they're a dynasty, and there's no true like dominant team in the NHL like you see in like the NBA for a long stretch of time, or even the NFL. Now we got the Chiefs, and
NHL teams just fluctuate up and down. Like obviously the Lightning have been able to sustain success for 3 years in a row now, but like everybody else, there's a lot of shakeup almost every year, and I really do enjoy that.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I differentiate between the Wild and the Vikings there. It'd be, like you said, it'd be great to see the Vikings win the Super Bowl. That's obviously the championship I would like to see the most.
Mm-hmm.
And then outside of the Super Bowl, I don't really know. Like it's probably a tie for me between the Stanley Cup and the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy watching both of those. Just a true hard-fought 7-game series. I mean, we've already won World Series in this state. It didn't happen when we were alive, obviously, but it'd be nice to get something that hasn't been done before.
Mm-hmm.
But with obviously Super Bowl taking the cake. So how do you feel about ranking those championships in order after the Super Bowl?
As far as what I would want personally, I would probably say I'd probably have to go with an NBA championship just because I think all the buzz around it is just next level. Basketball is such a global game that I think it could reach anybody everywhere. And I just think that'd be so cool to watch the Wolves really go off on ABC and Mike Breen on the call and hit a big three and he goes bang.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
But I just think that'd be super cool. And I enjoy, especially this year, watching the NBA playoffs, watching a team put together a good run, like for instance the Bucks or even the Suns too. They had a good year.
Yep.
But that probably would be next for me. And honestly, if you'd asked me this question like probably 3 months ago or something, and I probably would have a much different answer for you. But after watching just these NBA playoffs, like we were talking about at the beginning of this, the Bucks winning a championship kind of gives me some hope where it's actually like maybe there's a reality out there where the Wolves can win a championship.
Right.
And like I feel like that would carry a lot of buzz and a lot of popularity in this Twin Cities area. I feel like Minnesota is a sleeping giant state for basketball.
For sure it is.
So I think that'd be a lot of fun. But obviously it's a state of hockey, so Stanley Cup would be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But next, I'd probably go with the World Series.
Okay.
Next, just because I really enjoy the Fall Classic if my team is in it, but at the same time, boy, we haven't even seen a playoff win as long as we've been able to understand it, and that kind of sucks. But I'd like to see that change. But honestly, I guess that and the Stanley Cup are pretty close because the Stanley Cup would mean so much to the state of hockey. So I think a Wild Stanley Cup win and watch a Stanley Cup final, that'd be incredible.
It would. Playoff hockey is just fantastic. It's so hard fought. They're giving it their all.
Exactly.
I agree with you about the NBA Finals, though, and it being a global game. Like, it would just be absolutely fantastic to see the Wolves get that kind of, worldwide consideration, I guess.
People would know Ant everywhere. That'd
exactly.
be great.
He'd be global icon. And another thing with the NBA here, too, quickly, before we wrap up, is you got LeBron, who's aging out. Steph Curry's getting into his mid-30s. Kevin Durant is as well. All these like truly dominant superstars of the last decade are starting to get old.
There's some room.
And there's nobody really like truly coming behind them that's like a dominant player. There's a bunch of stars, a bunch of young, really good players, but...
Yeah, Giannis, who's only 26, which kind of blew my mind last night. I didn't realize he was still that young.
Right, and he's probably the closest thing they have to like a dominant player, so...
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Be sure to like our videos and stay tuned for more content by subscribing to our channel. And feel free to leave a comment below talking about... who you think has the best chance to win a championship and which championship you'd like the most, I guess. Maybe some of you like the World Series the most, something like that. So, yeah, drop a comment and be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. And thanks for watching.